each one's opportunity to speak here. They've all came this far, but I don't believe that there's any legality to this meeting whatsoever other than just that we met.
I mean, if Eric shows up, then I think we'd have quorum because that'd be 3 out of the 5. Oh,
Yeah, two.
okay. So yeah, he might miss the whole thing then. Yeah,
Yeah.
just the 2 of us.
Yeah, there's no action, so.
Yeah.
Just presentations, right?
I think probably you can use this same agenda when we can get a meeting. And seeing there's no public action going here, you might not have to advertise it for 2 weeks. I don't know how often, how long you have to advertise that we're going to meet.
Typically it's like a 7-day thing.
Yeah. You probably would not have to even advertise it since we're not conducting public meeting.
Yeah.
If you felt strong enough that we should meet. And I see some real interesting reports here that I know you've worked hard to accumulate. And I hate to see you just so if they're not binding in any way, shape, or form, we can postpone it for a whole month. Or we can postpone it to whenever it's convenient to reconvene and still make the legal notices.
Well, so there's no legal notices involved with this meeting.
Okay.
Because it's all presentation based, so.
We don't have a legal notice printed if we're having a actual.
No, legal notices are only required if it's an actual hearing that's taking place.
We have another member on.
Oh, yeah.
online? That's Julie, right?
Yeah, she's
Okay, so-
not voting though. Like,
Oh, that's, yeah, okay, so
But
we
Carl,
need Carl.
Carl, who's coming in now, is a voting member.
Do you want to start the meeting then?
I can start the meeting if you would like,
We're live now.
but I don't even know just how to word that. I'll have to think on it a bit, but it is 4:08 and the city of the Dalles held their Historic Landmark Commission meeting. Pardon me. Okay, thank you. And we are a little bit short of a quorum at this actual moment. There, now we're getting a quorum put together. Hi, Carl.
he's on mute.
Excuse me, you're muted.
On mute. How's that?
Hi,
Perfect.
now we're here.
Okay.
That gives us 3 out of 5. That actually is a quorum. If Carl's here and Forrest is here and the chairman, we do have a quorum.
Do have a quorum, but just as an FYI, Carl is a new member, so was not here for the February meeting. So you could hold off on approving those minutes until the next meeting when you have a quorum. It'd be entirely up to you. It'd probably be best practice to do that.
Carl? Carl? I want to welcome him aboard, but if he can't talk to me, I can't welcome him too
He
well.
froze up.
Yeah.
There he is.
Do we have to go over and pinch him?
Hey, Carl, can you hear us?
I can, yes.
All right.
Oh, good. Now, Carl, I want to thank you for joining our Landmark Commission. I've known you for quite some time, and I know that you have a very strong feeling in your heart about the historic character of the city of the Dalles. So, personally, from Bob McNair, welcome aboard. Is there anyone here that you don't know that you would like to be introduced to?
Okay, Joshua Chandler.
Hi, Carl. I'm Josh. I'm Josh Chandler. I'm the community development director.
Hi, Josh. Good to
And
meet
I'm
you.
Yeah, good to meet you. And I'm sitting here next to Ann Moorhead, who's our special projects coordinator.
I've worked on a special project with Ann already.
All right.
Are you acquainted with Forrest?
Hi, Carl. I'm forced.
Hmm. Hi.
This one, the orange one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All
Hi.
right, Scott Randall's down there. He is our representative from the city council.
Hi, Carl. What's up again?
Gonna be kind of a slow operation here for a little while. Can we go on with the roll call then?
Bev Aggie is absent. Forrest Ericoli.
Present.
Eric Gleason is absent. Bob McNary,
It's here.
Carl Verkuderen,
Present.
Julie Reynolds,
Present.
and Scott Randall.
Present?
Thank you.
All right. We will have our pledge of allegiance. And Forrest, I guess you're standing close to the flag. Would you please help me?
Sure thing, Bob. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay. Have everyone had a chance to look at the agenda? We have no hearings that we're conducting. We're making some presentations today. If there's any questions, I will try to answer them. Otherwise, I'd look for a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as it stands.
Somebody's gonna second. I guess I am. I'm entitled to. That's right. I never could understand this rules and Roberts for this. I second. So now I'm gonna call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Is that satisfactory? All right. This is quite some time ago. It's almost ancient history, but the approval of the minutes of the February 28th, 2024. I hope you people have had a chance to read them. There is really some good stuff in those that goes farther than just the minutes of our meeting.
Excuse
It
me.
got us thinking about the historical character of this community very strongly.
Can we vote on that with?
Yes, we'll vote on it. So now, is there anyone sees a correction in the minutes?
I don't see a correction, but I'd like to make a motion to postpone the approval of the minutes until we have the committee members that were actually present for that meeting.
That is a legal motion. We just need the second, and I'll second it. I don't even know if it needs a vote. I'm just gonna say it passed unanimously. Because how would we vote when we don't have those people? Okay, we'll go on from there. Now we're going down to the public comment, and anyone can talk here at this point for 5 minutes, it says, but we don't really always get too excited about that. But you cannot infringe on our agenda. So if you got comments to make, you have to kind of pick and choose and stay away from our agenda. So, Mr. Wolf, do you have anything you'd like to talk to us today? Would you identify yourself and give us an address?
My name's Richard Wolf. I'm from the Dalles, Oregon, class of 72.
Can you scoot it back just a little bit? There you go. Thank you.
It's a hot mic. Okay. Okay. Historic Landmarks Commission provides leadership and enterprise on maintaining and enhancing his- maintaining historic and architectural heritage. I contacted Port Authority after finding out that the pilings down by the river were a wharf, and they're going to be hopefully pulling up the engineering specs and getting back to me. And I believe that I've discovered access to the wharf. The wharf was built late 1930s, 35 to 38. And there was multiple reasons for it to be built, mainly commerce. Next to the Baldwin Saloon, I noticed portals. There's 4 of them. And I also had a question to myself as to why the parking lots were at a different level. And I studied quite some time, and I found what's called basalt lock rock exposed. And it would have to be from around 1938 when the shipping center was built. I have a note here, and it will take me just a second to find it. Still learning how to work this thing. When I'm nervous like that, it's even harder. And I forgot my glasses. I might as well have just about been absent myself. Here we go. In 1938, the city had roughly 8,000 residents. In anticipation of becoming an active deep water ocean port, Port Authority built a modern sea terminal at the cost of $300,000. Port boasted a 1,000-foot long wharf able to accommodate 3 ocean-going freighters simultaneously. 3 new dockside slewing cranes, each capable of lifting 15,000 pounds, and 2 huge transit sheds for storage and general cargo. Ideally located, the port of the Dalles would be able to service the entire Oregon Inland Empire and reduce rates by eliminating complication and cost of shipping goods over land. Portland by highway and rail jobs. Jobs would be plentiful, city population would grow, and the economy Wasco County based primarily agriculture and lumber would flourish. So what we had down there was Grand Central Station. I believe I've uncovered a underground access to the wharf. It can be seen still. It's been saved somehow. Next to the Baldwin. It seems that the Baldwin may have been our first hospital or mortuary. Next, we had the Walden's drugstore. We had a train depot. And that was all accessible from Main Street. It was called Main Street. I may have discovered that one of the first streets may be the first street in Oregon at the end of the Oregon Trail. A promenade, a wooden boardwalk location, one of our city's first cast iron pipes location, promenade, shipping area. If you turn left after you left the paddle boat landing, when crossing up Court Street at First Street, turning left onto Main Street, First Street, you would be on the right, you would see the lower level and a boardwalk, and you would see wagons down below. They would be coming in behind Napa, going down into the lower area to unload goods from town to load the ship. Coming out onto Court. Let's see, I'm getting Union and Court mixed up probably, but coming out the other direction would be unloading the ship. So both of those lots were filled with cattle, lumber, and armors. And it's really a very important part of our city. There's more to find. I believe I found a cistern. We didn't have storm drain. We had, let's say we dug a hole size of this room and filled it with the rock that we took out of that hole. And our land looks somewhat to what Google is tearing down now. We flattened it out with dynamite and nitroglycerin and oxen. The land down here was full of horses, cows, wagon wheels, ruts, and we needed to be able to unload those ships around the clock. There was room for 3 freighters that size, and there is a couple pictures out there with smaller ships in the somewhat of a bay area in the widest part of the river for our location. So I think it's our responsibility to protect, as all historic landmarks do, protect that area until we thoroughly understand what Port Authority did there. There's been some kind of a disconnect. A lot of this hand work, is still visible behind last stop. There is a partition, pony wall. It's called retaining wall. It's not retaining anything, but they've only did half of that lot. And on the other half, adjacent to what I call the Chinatown building, is still an open air basalt build that was used for that area. And you can actually see where they used the consistent engineering of how to lay this rock. They used same size and what's called chippers in between for extra sturdiness. Salt block rock, what I call it, is a basalt ballast rock, and it's same thing as on railroad tracks. Under the track, you can grab a couple handfuls of that type of rock. In this case, it would be 12-inch and minus on the bottom, and then you work up and you go 10-inch and then smaller. The dirt was set aside from the hole that was dug, and the rocks were set on the other side, and then the hole was filled. You take that basalt block rock from the track and set it on the mud, you'll get just about instant earth pack filled on. You just keep filling until you do get packed enough to run a railroad, which is a lot of weight. That without a storm drain, you need a way to disperse the water evenly. And these engineers knew how. Thank you.
Mr. Wolf, you have a wonderful memory. And I would love very much to get you and Roger Nichols together and record this. But this is a little bit out of the scope of what our commission does. We are protecting the ones that we can find. I realize that there's a lot of it that's buried in the river and so on and so forth. But I'm fascinated with your stories, but I'm afraid that we're going to have to ask you to come back at a later date or something of that nature because we're getting behind on our agenda.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Did I talk 10 minutes?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. That was very, very interesting, and I am proud that we have people in our community that have that good a memory and is got courage enough to step up and talk to us. Okay, I am going to go now to presentations and our controversial drugstore and the light project. I'm sorry I didn't get to attend it, Anne, but would you make your presentation now, please?
There we go. It should be live now. I am Ann Moorhead, Special Projects Coordinator. Let me just get this pulled up. Hmm. Well, yeah, there's a lag on it. So I am presenting on the Waldron Drug Light Capsule Project. I presented on this once before when we were in our early stages before we received funding, but I was going to give you the update on how we finished it out. So the Waldron Brothers Drug Store Light Projector Project began in September 2023 and was officially completed in May 17th, 2024 with the activation event Illuminate the Dalles. The project aimed to revitalize the Waldron Drug Building, which City Council had agreed to keep up, but had not really been an active part of the urban fabric of the downtown in a very long time. So, installation involved a couple of different elements. First, there was the pole on electrification you can see on the far left photo. And then after that, the artist, Craig Winslow of Winslow Studios, helped put in what's really the meat and bones of the light capsule, which are the projectors. So there were 6 total projectors, 2 for each layer. So you can see here, after putting in the projectors, it comes to scanning and placing the gobos. And so the gobos are what make up the layer. You can see on the right, on one side, you have the picture, the owl ghost sign, that faded advertising sign showing through. And on the other side, without the gobos, you see it's just a white light. So it's a matter of putting in this see-through placard, which really kind of brings it to life. So after the installation of the projectors came the scanning and the creation of those gobos.
This might be a stupid question. What's a gobo?
A gobo is a technical term for the piece in a projector, which, as I said, essentially provides the picture for an architectural lighting element. I wasn't sure either. I had to Wikipedia.
Thank you.
Yep. So in addition to the projectors itself, there's also a plaque in the park which shows that the project exists even during the day and kind of highlights a description of it as well as some instructions. It says that the projector goes on every night from sunset to sunrise and a couple other things, and proves, even when the day is not dark enough to see that it's still there, and ready to come on that next night. So this is a look at all the different layers. You can see there's the owl cigar sign. That's the earliest layer, estimated at being put on around 1915. The latter 2 layers, the red storage sign, and then following that, the black insurance and storage sign, were expected to have been put in around the 1930s. And so you can see them all active at the same time as well as one by one. Typically, the cycle just goes from one to the other at, I believe, about a 7-second interval. There's also the underlying light capsules layer that just says the general website where you can find more information about the project. So some of the promotional materials created for this project are things like that project website, which if you haven't seen it already, I would highly recommend. It has extensive detail around the history of the building and the project itself, as well as many historic and current photos of the project, which overall makes it really cool to look at. It was also reviewed by Eric Gleason, so very grateful for all of his help throughout this process because he's the one that really made sure we were sticking to the facts and that we were portraying it accurately. So very thankful for that. Some other promotional materials, I passed out these cards. This is a postcard that was created for the project. It has an underlying photo of the building and a shiny layer that shows up when you tilt it of the owl sign. It also has information like the website and instructions on when it is active for use of promotion. If you need another one, they're also in the community development department, free to grab. In addition to those, there was also a number of promotional materials made for social media, specifically around the Illuminate the Dalles event. So getting into that, the Illuminate the Dalles event was the lighting ceremony event, also meant to celebrate Historic Preservation Month. It was held on May 17th from 7 to 9 p.m. It was held so late because it needed to be dark enough to see the light capsule. It had 4 different parts. It started at the Neon Sign Museum. We collaborated with them and they were gracious to allow for free admission during the event. And they also offered some free food. We also collaborated with them to provide more food. I worked with volunteers, Eric Gleason being one, 4 total, to provide walking tours that brought people to see the historic buildings and murals of downtown. Those were anywhere from half an hour to an hour and were meant to bring people from the Neon Sign Museum into Lewis and Clark Park. And so we overall got really great reviews and an audience and reception on that. Once at Lewis and Clark Park, starting at 8:30, we had the grand lighting ceremony. And so we had speakers that had been involved in the process, Councilor Darcy Long, Eric Gleason, the artist Craig Winslow, among others, all spoke about the history of the project and all we'd gone through to get to the point of the lighting ceremony. So it was overall very well attended to. At its zenith during the lighting ceremony, I counted 80 people in attendance. So for late on a Friday night, it did very well. And overall was just really exciting to kind of see brought to fruition. So here's some more photos about that event. You can see we started at the Neon Sign Museum with food and admission. The walking tours were extensive. They covered one route to the east, one route to the west, and then one route to see the Wing Hong High building. And so you can see all the stops along the way, which were really some cool tours. In addition to that, these are some pictures from the lighting ceremony itself. You can see the turnout was quite broad, despite the brisk weather day of. So it all culminated in a night of unforgettable historic preservation and culture. Anyone have any questions? Any thoughts?
Do you have to have a special technician to redo this lighting, or is it on every night, or?
It is on every night. It is expected to be on every night for up to the next 10 years is the expected lifespan of this installation. It works mostly autonomously. It doesn't really need anyone to mess with it. But if it does, we can always contact the artist to come back out and help us fix something. We are also able to change the timing in case anyone ever goes out and feels it's too slow, too fast. It's pretty easy to get that switched over even remotely to a different timing or schedule. Overall, though, this is really pretty simple in that now that it's been made, it's pretty basic architectural lighting, so a white light shining through that screen. The creation of it itself is kind of the difficulty, so maintaining it should be a fairly simple endeavor.
Well, I was just thinking of next week.
Mm.
At the fireworks display.
Mhm.
It should be on about the same time then.
Yeah, I mean, fireworks
And
should
I
really
don't-
start happening till
I
after
really-
sunset.
Where I live, I don't need to go anywhere for the fireworks display.
Mhm.
I kind of have to stand back a little bit, but I don't know how many people go down to the park for the fireworks display and sit on the grass and stuff of this nature. I have no idea, so.
Yeah.
It might be recognized a whole lot more next week.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it'll be on at sunset, and I can't imagine fireworks are going to start too much earlier than that because you won't see them. So it should be a good night to draw in more attention.
Well, any other questions on that presentation?
Just one, this light
Yes.
capsules, is that the artist website or is that,
Yes,
web-
that is the artist website. So this is the 40th one he's done, but he's done very few that are permanent. Most of them were like 1 day things. And so you can see all of his projects on the Total Light Capsule website. Our particular one is the Light Capsule dot app dash 40, I believe. And so that's because we're the 40th one. So it's also on here on the web, on the postcard that I handed out in case you forget. It's in that little line, and it's in the staff packet report. So yeah, very cool website. Highly recommend you check it out. Mhm.
I got nothing.
Okay.
All right, you can go on to. I gotta be honest again, which is unusual for me, but I didn't read all the comments for what they could do with the Tony project. So you probably got a better summary than I could ever possibly read out of it anyhow. So please give us a summary of what you've found on the public survey.
Okay, will do. Let me just finish pulling it up. Here we go. It'll probably take a second. Great. So the Tony's building site located at 401 to 407 East 2nd Street, what used to be the property for Tony's Town and Country Clothing between 1968 and 2016. The Columbia Gateway Urban Renewal Agency acquired the building in June 2016 for redevelopment, but it proved economically unfeasible. So in February 2021, the agency board decided to demolish the building and abate hazardous materials, completing that in November 2023. So now the site, as you can see in this picture, is leveled with fencing around it and awaiting its next life. So following that, the agency recommended that staff go forward and figure out what other things the community would like to see there, which led to the creation of this survey. So this survey very simply asked people, please let us know what you would like to see in this space. It was meant to be very open and broad so that we didn't manipulate people into thinking one way or another or trap them into a certain number of categories. It was open for about 2.5 months, received 251 responses, of which 248 were kept as 3 were removed due to inappropriate content. Because there were so many, I do not blame you for not getting through them all, but I will say that they are very interesting and I really enjoyed reading all of them. Participants were allowed to submit multiple entries, so the 248 does not indicate 248 people. However, there was quite a bit of really obvious differences, proving that there were a number of people who participated in this survey, quite a large number, and no personal information was required, and anything that had been submitted has been redacted. So here you can see part of the sign that we put up on the space too, calling attention to the program and asking people to participate. It was also pushed via the Facebook page, a couple other community partners such as the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce, and as well as a couple posters and other places around the community. So this is everything in a snapshot. So this kind of is a word cloud. Word clouds show frequency of usage of certain words. So you can see things like space, park, community are all very important to people, even kids. One note for some things like parking is that if you said that you want parking and you said that you do not want parking, then it still says parking. So that does kind of change the frequency of certain words, such as that one. But it really kind of goes to show what people are most interested in and have come up most often throughout these responses. Ready for the next slide? There's a lot there. In addition, I worked on quantifying the data to see what some other things are that people have talked about. So some of the common themes you can see throughout this are that the largest number of people have talked about parks, green spaces, plazas, some sort of public space, public square of some kind. There's a lot of different language, but it all kind of came to a very consistent idea of what people wanted to see. And I will say, I forgot to mention earlier, but these each response can have multiple different categories. Some people said they would like to see a park, or, you know, maybe they would like to see a mixed use building. And so they were counted for both. And so in addition, some of these higher categories are community event or gathering space, some sort of residential, particularly accessible or affordable of some kind. And there is also a lot coming who indicated a wish for retail or eating space or some sort of food or drink or restaurant. So those are the kind of common themes that we were seeing throughout these survey responses. In addition, this kind of goes to show as well, instead of multiple responses, this one each counts each of the responses only once. So this separated them into a building solution, some sort of structure was asked for, a no building solution where generally they wanted a public space of some kind or a park or something that did not require a building, a parking only solution, because it felt disingenuous to combine only parking with a no building solution, both and not specified. And so you can see here still this kind of no building solution, wanting not parking or not a building, but some sort of park or community space is at the highest at nearly 45%. But building is not too far off at about 30.4% of people expressing a desire for some kind of structure to be there. That may be in combination to a park or it may be alone. It was pretty broad in the amount of responses that fell under that category. Parking alone filled about 5.7%, both 2.8 and not specified was 16.2%. So overall, I mentioned these earlier, but the top 6 categories came out to be the following. So number 1 was the park, plaza, and public square. Any kind of outdoors or space that, or possibly covered space that really kind of was open for everyone. Respondents frequently emphasize the importance of having accessible open spaces. These spaces are desired for relaxation, social interactions, community events, and enjoying nature, as well as interfacing with the local businesses and being a place where people could sit down and eat or rest in between shopping or whatever they were doing in the downtown. Second was as a community, as event space. There was a lot of talk about particularly staging for a Cherry Fest, a number of concert venues, farmers markets, gathering areas, a lot of those kind of possibilities and potentials within the space, or even a space that could transform to kind of accommodate multiple uses. Third is residential housing. As I mentioned, there was a lot going, speaking to affordable housing units or mixed use buildings with residential on the top and commercial or retail on the main floors that could be, you know, used by people in the downtown. Fourth is retail and commercial. There was a wide range of thoughts around small businesses and shopping centers, resale stores, commercial spaces, you know, stemming anywhere from someone just saying, I want Olive Garden, to people, you know, really kind of going into what exactly they wanted to see or what kind of types of buildings they wanted to see. Really kind of following a large spectrum. Fifth is some sort of food, drink, or eating space. Those, once again, were pretty broad as far as including restaurants, as well as food trucks or just picnic areas, places where people could necessarily eat either in a structured environment or in an unstructured environment were both included. So overall, though, food appears to be pretty attractive to people. And lastly, 6, and I added this because I felt like it was repeated so often and so kind of unique, But there was a really large desire for some sort of space oriented toward kids, teens, children, any kind of word along there, or just families in general. So playgrounds, entertainment places like skate parks, or family entertainment areas. It was a pretty wide range, but they all were pulled together by the fact that they really emphasized that there was a lack of these spaces in the Dalles, and that there was a really big wish and even need to have a space where you could take children and really enjoy the downtown. So that kind of goes over my entire broad overview of the data. I know that 248 responses can be a lot to read through, but hopefully that kind of gives you a glimpse into what it contained. So at this point, I want to see if you guys have any other questions.
May I?
Yes.
That land is in public hands of right now. It
It's
is owned by
belonged by
the
the
city
urban-
or the
The Urban Renewal Agency. Yeah.
All right, and any development that would be done on that could be done by one of two sources. Either the public could be invited to, okay, a bond issue, any kind of a levy to generate money, or it could be sold, and then the person that buy it would have the right to do what he wanted with it, I presume, as long as he was within the zoning laws. Was this very well explained to people that just because you want to park there doesn't mean that there's any money to develop a park?
I mean, that's a great point. I don't think necessarily it was worded that way. We were really just trying to find, the agency's trying to find, after it was demoed. So as Ann mentioned, purchased in 2016 to redevelop. There was plans for multifamily development or a multi-use development. And it delayed, multiple times delayed to the point where when we tore it down and well, we were intending to go forward with demolition in 2021. The intent was to do a redevelopment of the property. After we tore it down in 2023, agency staff was gearing up to put an RFP together. And that RFP would have been guiding us forward on what exactly was going to happen with the site. And the agency decided to kind of put the brakes on it a little bit and just find out what the community wants to hear from it. So wants to see on the site. So the point of how it can be funded hasn't really been a discussion. We really just wanted to open that up to see what the community would like to see there before we move forward with a process, an RFP process. There will be an RFP process most likely that follows this. The agency is we are working through some financial analysis right now. The Urban Renewal Agency is. We have some projects to complete, and this is just a new project that really has come to be. So as far as the finances go, if it's funded by a public entity, the city or the agency, that would have to be, the funding for that would have to be determined by both the city and the agency. But you're right, it could be ultimately turned over to a private developer. But we were hoping to use this information to guide that RFP because it is in the agency's hand. We could sell it to a developer and get a convenience store. But we want the control of this site to guide it so that we can take this information, take what the agency decides is the best path forward, and put that into the structure of the RFP. And basically you can use it as a scoring system. We can say, if it has this element, it's scored much higher than if it doesn't have those elements. So hopefully that answers question, kind of.
What I'm looking at in the long term, and I don't know, and I don't really need to know everything, but this is tying up money that urban renewal has used to get it to the point it is right now. The building is demolished, the lot is buildable, and all that sort of. but their money is tied up there from them doing another project until they recover some of the money that they have involved in that project so far. Or where do they got a budget they work with, and they get so many tax dollars and so on and so forth, but they also work with the project of getting payback.
Correct. And
And
it's
there's
very,
no payback on a big old vacant lot.
there's
And-
also, you could say, no direct payback with a public park either. But it is something that there's been discussions about a Federal Street Plaza. The Federal Street Plaza would be effectively vacating Federal Street between First and Second Street, and that would create an opportunity for some public space. So I do think, I can't speak for the people that commented on the public space, but I do think there's probably a little bit of people wanting to see this Federal Street Plaza going forward. And now they see this Tony site next door. So there might be a mix of overall in that area wanting to see public, like wanting to see an open space. But as far, yeah, the agency, I mean, to date, the agency has spent $850,000 on this site. So with the purchase of the building, with the demo, all the archaeological work, it's about $850,000. So it is definitely a big decision to make. And, urban renewal is about projects. One of the main goals is to, return money to the tax rolls, increase the tax rolls, and public space doesn't have the direct impact, but an indirect impact of you build a central point in your downtown, it can definitely attract business. It can attract things to that area. So
You look like you're antsy. You
Well,
got
I was gonna
something?
bring up and Josh mentioned it, the plaza, the Federal Street Plaza. There are some early plans, I think, some
Yep.
concepts, and conceptual drawings, and I think that got tabled, I think. But
yeah,
kind of had in mind the whole development of that Tony's site also, because I
Yeah.
believe it includes the parking lot or the Federal Street, but also the parking lot that's to the or
the parking lot, it was in the recent draft. It didn't include
Just
the
Federal
parking
Street.
lot. Yep,
with some trees and some benches.
exactly,
I think it's even
exactly.
a splash pad, I think at one point they were talking.
Yeah. And the thing to keep in mind, there could be the option of, the Tony site is, there are two lots right next to each other. They're 250 by 120-foot lots, the standard, like our standard downtown lot. There could still be an element of using some of that site for a public space and some of it for a building. But it's really, there's just so many options with it, but it was just a great opportunity to find out what the community is really looking for. And I know a lot of conversations, the community is really looking forward to having a downtown public space, a space that people can hang out in. And there's been a couple, some starting and stopping of trying to kind of push the needle on that. So Federal Street Plaza, if I'm feeling that is going to be picking up some speed. So the idea with the Tony site redevelopment would be how to incorporate, like I was saying, this point, when we do a points, we'll allocate points with that RFP. Maybe there could be an option to add more points to a project or score something a little bit higher if it takes that use and incorporates it into Federal Street Plaza. So I think the Tony site and the Federal Street Plaza can work together seamlessly to create kind of a space and whatever it's going to be.
And I have time to correct a mistake that I have made at this point. I'm not quite used to people being off-site. Carl, I apologize to you wherever you are. And I didn't give you a chance to comment on Miss Moorhead's first report at all. I just completely don't focus on you being here with us. And Julie's out there somewhere also, isn't she?
Eric just logged in.
So anyhow, And there's Eric now. That hairdo, I could tell that had to be Eric. So forgive me for not acknowledging you when I have all the responsibility in the world to do it. So if you got a comment that may be a little belated that you would like to make? I don't know if Eric's even muted. There's Julie. If you got something, Julie, that I didn't mean to ignore you. I'm sorry.
No, I'm there. I attended the opening for the time capsule and really thought it was an excellent opportunity, and it's a really neat project. So kudos to Anne.
Yeah, I believe both Julie and Carl were both there at the light capsule events. As was Eric Gleason, as I mentioned.
Eric, are you there yet? You're not talking.
Oh, as soon as I figure this out, I will. Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. Yeah, the light capsule thing was fantastic. It was a great event. It really highlights the Waldron building and really, I think, adds a lot to the downtown. So,
Thank you.
Carl, I see you a little bit. If you got a comment that I've overlooked. Hello, Carl. Well, I guess we'll go on.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Josh, could you clarify what an RFP is for me?
Yeah. It's a request for proposals.
Okay.
Yeah, so we would basically lay out the criteria of what we would be looking for in a project, and then proposers come and they provide that information to us. And there's typically can be like a scoring system that goes into it, so we can figure out who what the best proposal is.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then this one is for Anne. On your bar graph, occurrences by category. The far right category was none of the above. Was that just people that were saying we don't want any of these options, or other?
Yeah, that was, as it is qualitative data, people could send in a whole bunch of different things. And those are things that just were either so unique that they didn't, have enough backing to give them their own bar graph. As you saw on that word chart, there were so many things giving them all their own category was a little difficult. Or were not quite talking about what they wanted to see there in concrete terms, or for whatever reason just couldn't fit into a different category and weren't seen enough to have, to create a new one.
Thank you for the clarification.
Mhm.
All I had.
Now, Carl.
Yes. I need to apologize. I'm kind of breaking up here every once in a while. I'm not sure. It's probably my computer. And I'm not sure, were you asking for just general comments or?
Were you asking for general comments?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, Carl, general comments on the presentations?
Yeah. Mhm. Well, I think we have a lot of things to think about. Yeah, good job gathering all that information.
And
I didn't catch it.
He was asking where you gathered all the information. I think he was asking about the survey, where that was gathered.
okay.
Well, I mean,
It's that part.
Any further questions on Ann's? Finally got a chairman that's looking all over. Anyone got anything further they'd like to talk to Ann about on the two reports that she's made? If hearing none, we will close the presentations and go down to staff comments. So I guess that's gonna be you, Josh, the way the equipment's moving around.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, thank you. Joshua Chandler, Community Development Department. Thank you, Anne. First note here, it's not on this list. The reason I'm thankful that we were able to have this meeting, even with only a few of us here today. This is actually going to be Anne's last HLC meeting. It could be Anne's last public meeting with the city. She's finishing up her rare fellowship here. Last week is like what, third week of July or something like that. So yeah, I just want to thank her for all of her hard work. It's been awesome working with her. She's done just amazing things. She came here with 4 projects, knocked them all out of the park, and then she asks me pretty much every time we meet if there's another project she can do. So she's very hungry for the work. I really appreciate that. She does amazing work. I mean, you can see in just the presentation that she put together, pulling everything together for the light capsule project, everything for the Tonys. Tonys wasn't, her working on that Tonys, doing that survey. That was one of those extra projects that we just were able to work with her on. For urban renewal, she's done a lot of work. She put together a map, a Google map of all the urban renewal projects since 1990. So yeah, just want to thank you for all your work. It's been a real joy working with her. And if anybody wants to do their best to try to convince her to stay, go right ahead. I will not stop you. With that, I will go into some staff comments and updates here for you. And just another side note, we did want to have this meeting to provide these notes. We haven't been having meetings lately. There has not been, applications haven't been coming in for HLC. There are just, we could be seeing one for the Sigmund's Flowers soon. I spoke to Michael Leash, who is with that project. They're going to be doing just an amazing kind of facelift to the Sigmund's Flowers. So hopefully they'll be coming in. Hopefully it's next month. I met with them earlier this month, so didn't meet the timeline to get on this agenda, but we will get it scheduled as soon as we can. So really quick, I'm gonna share my screen here. Not on here anymore. Apologies, technical. Oh, here we go.
Get a longer arm, man. Oh,
All right. So just to kind of walk us through where we're at, like about these updates, I just thought it would be good to put a couple slides together. They don't look as good as Anne's slides, but bear with me. I think they have the information we need. So I wanted to just get some updates on 3 projects. 3 of these projects, the First Street project, the First Street Urban Renewal Parking Lots. This is a new project that just kind of popped up. And then the Urban Renewal Incentive Program. So the First Street project here on the right-hand side, on the right-hand side of the screen is the First Street project. This is, First Street is the original commercial corridor from the 19th and early 20th centuries. As Mr. Wolf was touching on earlier, this was just hustle and bustle back in the day. There's a lot of things that kind of disconnected this from being the corridor. One of those being the interstate being erected, or the interstate construction, which really created that disconnect from the city. But before that, there was basically docking just to the north of the First Street. So it was just a lot was going on back then. This is an area that has multiple historic resources. We have the Waldron Drug Building, the Baldwin Saloon, the Blue Building, the Wing Hong High building, as well as this area. It's kind of difficult to see on this map, but basically It's Chinatown, and this is an area that has an archaeological zone on top of it. So I'll touch on that archaeological zone here in a little bit, but it's very, I mean, if you just look at some of our oldest buildings here, so there's a lot of historical significance for First Street. So the First Street project, this is formerly the Dalles Riverfront Connection. This is a streetscaping project for First Street between Union, it's now Union and Laughlin Streets. At one point, the scope was Union and Madison Streets. This began in 2007. The city worked with KPFF Consulting Engineers. We're still working with KPFF Consulting Engineers throughout the life of this project. Throughout the life of this project, there has been multiple rescoping and downsizing amendments. Probably the largest was at one point, there was going to be basically a tunnel, a pedestrian access point on Washington Street, a Washington Street plaza that would have gone underneath the railroad, underneath the freeway, and would have connected to the Riverfront Trail. Years ago, this city council at the time was realizing the mounting costs of that project and then abandoned that portion of it. So then the First Street was rescoped. Through all the rescoping, it's kind of racked up some overall costs that are not really that are very unique with a project this size, a bit more expensive than what would have been spent on a project this size, but all the rescoping resulted in changes to plans. This project at one point received federal and state funding. Both of those have been returned. Some of those, even we were even forgiven on some of those costs and didn't have to repay the most recent cost to the Fed. Due to escalating construction costs that we're seeing everywhere, there is additional rescoping that we are currently looking at. The agency and the city are currently looking at that. And it has been discussed at our urban renewal agency meetings for the past 2 months. So it is something that we are taking a really close eye at. Of this project right now, the plans are currently at 95%. That additional 5% is really kind of the fine tuning of the plan. Some of the major project aspects, as I mentioned, this is a streetscaping project. Within this entire area, this includes, sidewalks, street trees, lighting, everything, of course, that you can see above ground. It's also is the replacement of the existing walls out there on First Street. These walls you can see in the pictures. My apologies, it was a little overcast today when I took the picture. These are the walls that you can see, the sunken parking lots that the Urban Renewal Agency has right there in the Chinatown block. The replacement of those walls is needed to hold up the new infrastructure that would be built on First Street. There's also the replacement of failing sidewalks around the Baldwin Saloon. So the sidewalks that immediately surround the Baldwin Saloon are sitting on top of some corroding steel plate, basically some steel I-beams. They are just rusted like crazy. So those are resulting, actually, if you're out at the Baldwin, I tried to take a picture, I didn't share it with you, but if you're at the Baldwin, you'll see a typical curb that you see on the street is about 6 to 8 inches. Well, due to the sinking, the sidewalk is almost flush with the street at the Baldwin. So definitely a failing infrastructure there. And the other is the replacement of a 125-year-old water pipe that's in the ground. There's a pipe, I think it was put in the ground, and it was 1870 or 1890. Great thing about it is it's still working. But with this whole project, it would result in the replacement of that pipe. A couple things here. There's right-of-way acquisition process that's in place. To do this project, we need to basically construct any of these walls. There are easements that have to be established on people's properties. We have to get onto those properties. So right now there's a process that we go through, and we're going to be working with all the property owners along First Street to obtain those easements from them so we can actually get onto their property legally. There's a railroad permit that has been approved, and this is something I wanted to highlight because working with the railroad can be a delay. And we have an approval from the railroad, so it's definitely a highlight of the project at this point. And then the SHPO permit, a SHPO permit was submitted in May, this last May, and that is for this project entirely. I mean, as I mentioned, very, very historically rich street here. So there is a full review from the State Historic Preservation Office on what we are proposing with this project. So this next project to discuss is the First Street Urban Renewal parking lots. So this is a map on your left-hand side. These are 2 parking lots owned by the Urban Renewal Agency. This is right there in the Chinatown block. There's 2 lots owned. Our Public Works Department, if you've been out there, real quick, if you've been out there, you've probably seen in the past few years, there's no striping out there. They're in very rough shape. Sometimes you see broken down cars there. People throw garbage in here. And really, it's been a goal of my own since becoming the director and the manager of the agency to try to clean these lots up. I know parking can always be a hot button issue in the city. And we have the recreation building that is going to be opening up actually this weekend. So there's going to be a lot more parking need in this area. So what better time to freshen up our parking lots than now? So this was on the left-hand side. It's difficult to see. Once again, my apologies on that on the resolution here, but there is about 55 parking spaces that we have figured out that we have here that we can maximize if we refinish everything. On the right-hand side, the area in the green is basically the 2 areas that we're talking about that will be resurfaced. So we entered into a contract with a local contractor. They were going to come in there and seal the cracks and then paint lines on top. Just a typical parking lot application that happens all the time. In using some of their heavy duty blowers, they were blowing basically chunks of the asphalt away. The asphalt was in such horrible shape that chunks were coming off to the point now we have some big potholes out there. It's to the point where filling and crack sealing does not work. So it was determined that we need to pull all the asphalt off and repave those lots. So definitely 3 times what was budgeted. But it's something that we're working through with the agency. But I knew that this site was part of an archaeological zone. This is another picture here. It's kind of difficult to see, but it's the very poor condition that these lots are in. I knew that these lots are in an archaeological zone. I touched base with Eric Gleason on them. I touched base with the archaeologists that we're using for First Street. Both of them were kind of on the same page of, oh, that's a great project. It'd be nice to have a, fresh surface on it. The archaeologist told me, contact SHPO, shoot them an email, let them know you're going to start the project. That turned into ultimately SHPO. Like we contacted SHPO. SHPO determined that this scope actually requires permitting. So we are in the process right now of entering into a contract at some point. Still waiting on a few quotes for an archaeologist who will work with us on this project. So SHPO is requiring that the basically peeling back of the asphalt will need to be monitored by an archaeologist the entire time we're there. So it went from a small repaving project to something much, much bigger. But just, and like I said, in the abundance of caution, I know that this is a highly historical area. So at the end of the day, it's a couple roadblocks and it's going to slow down our process. But I do think that we are doing it the right way by going through this process here. And then the last I wanted to touch on is the Urban Renewal Incentive Program. The reason I'm talking about this is because, as you may know, the Urban Renewal District is ultimately the majority of it is our downtown area. So there's some overlap with the Trevitz Historic District as well as our downtown commercial district. So this was a program that was adopted in the fall of 2022, and it provides financial assistance to property owners to help move projects just to get things along the way. We have a $50,000 commercial grant, and it's a 50-50 match. So it's a $100,000 project. The agency will pay $50,000 of that. So it's been a help too. As you can see here, 11 total properties. The committed so far to date is over $1.5 million. I do want to add a little bit of a caveat to that. Of that $1.5 million, about $855,000 is going towards the Basalt Commons multi-story apartment building that is down at the former Griffith Motors site. That is right across the street from the historic district, so it's not included in my list below. But of those 11 properties, 6 of them are historic properties. The former Sears building was our first, I think it was our second, which is now the workshop. We've done a great job. Facelift on that. The Foley building, Bob, I think you touched on this earlier. You and I were touching on this before the meeting. The Foley building was actually the piers that are in the front of the columns in front of the Foley building were starting to slough off a little bit. The foundation of them was starting to result in them getting a little cockeyed. So the agency helped them with going through and fixing those up, shoring them up, and actually pouring a bigger foundation underneath it. The former Chronicle building, this is the project that you've probably been downtown and you've seen. There's projects been under construction for a little while. But this is a brand new grocery store that's going to be downtown. That's at the former Chronicle building here. The Sunshine Mill, the Mint building, and the American Legion building. Those are the projects to round out the 6 here. These projects included anything from HVAC, plumbing, help with putting in commercial kitchens. As I mentioned, some structural work for the Foley building. The Sunshine Mill, a couple years ago, they were approved for some exterior doors going out to the east of their property. This funding will help them put those doors in. American Legion, they're doing a lot of work on the 2nd floor of the American Legion right now. So, yeah, all those are kind of like wrapped up into this program. And I think that is it. And I am more than happy to answer any questions or go back to any slides if we need to.
I just have one question out of curiosity. I saw there was some underground storage tanks at the old Chronicle building. Was that at one time a gas station, or were those just tanks for their heating system? Do you know? Or?
Yeah, so we're thinking it was probably a gas station. And thank you for bringing that up. It was on my short list to bring up because that project, really have to give it to those property owners. They took on a project that they probably thought, it's pretty easy. We'll just, easy remodel here. And it has really been a significant project. We knew about one underground storage tank. They had that taken care of using our brownfields program. And then in the process, they found 2 more. And then, no joke, 2 more were found after that. So it was really difficult for them, but all of those were basically right in the right of way. So they're putting in brand new sidewalks. So all of that had to come out. So that has contributed to a lot of the delay in that project. But they do hope to open, I believe, a soft opening possibly this week. Maybe this weekend, maybe early next week. Yeah, something like that. So
that has been was going to be open quickly, and it's been quite some time since they've got started there.
Yeah.
Ole asked that a question. John Lindell kept very accurate records, but I don't know the date he started. But those records that he kept of what was in each building on each particular almost daily basis when they changed ownerships or they changed use of the building, he recorded it. My understanding, I've never had a chance to read them, but they would be so valuable to you at this point. I'm stumbling into an old gas station that was out there in front of Brady's, that should have showed up sometime or another.
Yeah, so we use Sanborn maps quite often. The old the old fire insurance Sanborn maps. We have them on file. I think the oldest ones we have are 1892, maybe in the 1880s. No, there would have to have been,
Well, that'd be
yeah,
before
probably
John's time.
1880s, yeah. 1880s to I think the last one we have is maybe in the 40s. But in all the, we working through the city's brownfields program, we were able to locate a couple of those tanks, but really the last two tanks really came at a surprise when construction started on these sidewalks. So I really have to give it to the property owners for really hanging in there. A lot of our property owners, I would say the same with the recreation building. We were talking about that, of course, before the meeting, Bob. Recreation building also is supposed to be opening up this weekend, and really give it to that property owner too. I mean, he's really made lemonade out of some lemons on that building. Back all the way back from when that roof collapsed before he even entered into an agreement with the city. He still stuck with it, and he turned it into what's going to be a really cool outdoor venue. So, really got to hand it to these property owners downtown. When you do work on old buildings and old properties in the Dalles, you're going to find a lot of things: archaeological work, underground storage tanks, and really have to hand it to these people for sticking into it, and having a goal, and achieving that goal and moving towards it.
Now, so I don't make the same mistake twice in the same evening. Are people that are out, Carl, Eric, do you have any comments that you would like to make at this point?
I don't have any particular comments. I'm just impressed that all of this is going on and moving forward. So it's a lot of challenging tasks to kind of work towards. So I'm glad the city and Joshua are working towards those goals. And thanks for paying attention to the archaeology too. So thanks.
I don't know if Carl's back. Julie, have you got any comments you want to make?
No, it's been really interesting to hear all this. And I'm looking forward to that farm stand opening. It's too bad about the tanks. I remember Brady's Market, but I don't remember the gas station.
All right, now that I've got my ghost taken, I'll come back to the people here. How you doing, Forrest?
I'm doing great. I just want to thank Josh and Ann and everyone for doing such a great job. Really appreciate you guys.
Scott, you got anything further you want to add to
No, I
what
don't.
you've heard and
I don't. I always enjoy these meetings though.
try to absorb? If we have no further comments on this staff.
Are you asking for public comment or any other comment?
We normally don't take public comment at this point in our program. You got something real pertinent you want to tell us quickly? You got to be quick. Okay, come up here quickly.
Richard Wolf, the Dalles, Oregon. The blacktop on the parking lots is the wrong system. We need to hear from Port Authority. I asked Josh how the water was going to drain. What the blacktop creates is sheet water. That's some of the worst kind. It's going to be real slick. The system does not drain into a hole. It drains, the hole is the whole parking lot. The plumbing basically has been plugged with the blacktop. They did not have blacktop in a historic landmark industrial area back then. And it needs to be brick or another type of substrate.
Cobblestone.
Will not drain into anything.
Yeah.
That staff is aware of.
Thank you.
And I can comment on that. It will be graded, and we talked about this. It will be graded.
Good.
Okay. It will be graded to the alleyway where there is a drain in the alleyway. So there's a drain almost behind the rec building. So that is part of the grading process when they put this together, when they put this parking lot together. All parking lots are designed to have somewhat of a grade to it so you can slough off the water and it will go into the alleyway.
Has an existing grade now. It was graded back in 1938. Draining into a grate. Where does the water go? There's no plumbing, no storm drain, other than the bottomless cistern that's filled with basalt rock. It's so frustrating for builders in this town to deal with this city staff with nobody having any building trade background. How are they even taking contracts? Well, have we ever put a contract together? I have lots of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
That needs to be looked at. The drain, what you're draining that water into, a 2-foot snowpack draining into, when you go down and look at it, it's not a drain system the way that it would be with blacktop. So frustrating.
At this point in our normal procedure, and we're going to have to hurry it along because it's getting close to the cocktail hour, our commissioners, do you have any comments, Carl, that you want us to be thinking about until we meet again?
Just wanted to extend an invitation. That project that has gone over a couple of years of altogether the Dalles, the print, the mural, the booklet, and then the second booklet. I will be talking about that with the Wasco County Historical Society, 11 o'clock the morning of July 6th. So end of next week. Yeah, how that all came about, and the city, of course, had a big part in it, as did the art center. So you're all invited.
Thank you. Eric. Hello, Eric.
Hi, Bob. I don't really have anything to add. I think,
Okay, we'll
Okay.
accept that even. Now, Julie, we've come to love you, and you're always a good addition. You have anything that you'd like to add until we meet again?
Yes, I'd like to say how great it is to have the ships coming back at Fort Dalles Museum. We're starting to see a lot more visitors, and that is very helpful.
Thank you. All right. Did I miss anybody this time?
No, you got him.
Okay. You're next, Commissioner Forrest.
I don't have anything to report or discuss. Thank you, Bob.
Okay. Scott, we're enjoying you, and you're allowed to speak. If you just want to say no, that's fine. We'll accept that even.
Yeah, like I
Okay.
say, I always enjoy these meetings. I'm happy to be here.
All right, I've been struck with an idea that is very much in the infancy, but think about it over the next interval. We should be handing out a thank you note or a plaque or anything that we can afford to people that have restored something and made it back to the beauty of the original, or maybe even better than the original, but we don't dare talk that way. And something they can show show their compadres that the Landmark Commission is alive and well and recognizing what they're doing. other than just sitting here giving them, yeah, go ahead and do it, you know, or you gotta change the doorknob or something like that. Let's just be thinking about something that we could hand them, signed by the Landmark Commission, signed by the mayor. I don't care who, but our mayor had been very forward on wanting our town to look nice. He's worked hard at getting signs on monuments on each end of town and so on and so forth that I think that he should be commended for. And so I'm sure he would get aboard this if we could figure out how we really want to attack it. And I wouldn't think that would be a wonderful thing, because some of these projects, when they got done with them, we're kind of in awe that it couldn't melt that good, you know, that we had no idea that it would. And so we should recognize the person that did it, or recognize the group that did it, or however. That's my comment. Now, the next comment. You got an idea when we'll meet again?
I'm hoping next month or August. That's when I'm hoping that the Sigmund's Flower project is going to be coming through. So that's really the next thing that's on that I know of on a radar right now.
Okay. Hearing that, I'm sure they're gonna contact you because they can't live without it. Is somebody ready to entertain a motion that we resign or adjourn or whatever the proper word is at this point?
I will make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
All improved, amen. All right, thank you. Wonderful.